was in college. I actually was an Amway, I don't know what they call them, associate. I just thought that I recovered my money and then I just called it quits because it also started affecting my studies and what I really wanted. The dot-com crash, the attacks happened, and I basically had no scholarships. Got into one of the best management schools in India, and rest is history. So I basically started my career in analytics right after finishing my management degree. So then I started work with GE, started transforming into a more of a consultative role rather than the actual doing the work role. I mean, I don't look at these as kind of money opportunities. It was mostly experiences. Okay, Mu Sigma is even now probably one of the largest data science companies out there in terms of services. So I joined them very early, delivery manager out of India.
Delivery, are you delivering like sandwiches?
Well, I wish it wasn't as much fun, but yeah, it was delivering analytical projects to them. Yes, I mean, I was managing my own P&L, and I was at Mu Sigma until 2016. So that's when I left. I wanted to do something interesting. And my co-founder, Soumitra Singh, he's from one of the IITs. I mean, IITs are one of the best schools in India for engineering. Has a background in IOT and hardware. It'd be fun to build a product which can combine the hardware part, the sensing part, with the analytics.
Is the stress of building a company fun?
Absolutely.
Yes or no?
I wouldn't give it up any day. Yes, absolutely, it is fun. It's a sensor and apply it in a B2B scenario, like a supply chain. I have background in supply chain analytics, so I did work with Walgreens and Walmart, and we realized that the cold chain, which is supply chains which are moving things like ice creams, dairy, meat, vaccines, which are all temperature controlled. Everybody at home that hey, this is reason enough to quit without a job.
Now, did you have kids?
Yeah, of course.
So you had a lot of risk already.
Yeah.
There was
I had one kid then, and I had another when we were in TagBox.
So did your wife smack some sense into you?
I'm lucky to have a fairly supportive wife. One of his ex-colleagues from a company he worked with as the third co-founder.
Were you paying them? Were they working for free?
Pretty much peanuts. Yeah, nothing to write home about for sure.
Like a prototype first? Did you get customers first?
We made a PowerPoint first. We had to validate our thought before we went doing prototype. I mean, it's a real need. So, and at that point in time, we started the prototype. You tell them that you have a solution in hand already, even if you don't, and then put it in front of them and check with them whether, they would buy that.
Give me some details. How do you monitor a cold chain?
Yeah. So, for example, if somebody's moving a set of vaccines, right, from point A to point B, they would want to real time know the temperature of that particular box because it is got vaccine and it should be only between 2 to 8 degrees Celsius.
So back before TagBox was created, how were they monitoring?
They were doing it with something called data loggers, and at the end of the trip you take it out, you put it into a computer.
So there's a big lag time.
It's like there's not Digital Innovation Day coming up at Unilever.
I think it is.
Do you guys want to participate with us in our booth? And of course, which startup says no, right? And we did. And we had to create a prototype for them. The day before we were supposed to demo, nothing worked. We literally had a guy sitting at the back refreshing the database again and again. Then we realized that to actually develop a product which works and is world class, we need money. So we started looking for our seed round, seed money.
Now, seed money in India from Indian investors?
Yeah. So we have some angel investors there, a group of angel, and they liked it. They were sold. By July of 2017, we were already funded. And
so 1 year in.
We just started hiring immediately. We hired our first 4 or 5 guys. We also won the Qualcomm Design in India challenge for our hardware. So there are these sensors. These guys we actually get from our manufacturing partners. Yeah, there you go. All the software and the firmware which goes onto these guys is ours.
A wireless antenna in it?
Yep. It's got 2-year battery life. It's got a Qualcomm chip inside, and we got all the Qualcomm support.
Right there, is that temperature?
This is shock actually.
Shock?
Yep.
No,
vibration.
Who would use a shock sensor?
When they ship their appliances in a supply chain, because of mishandling, you could have damage. So this will be used to understand which parts of the supply chain
had a lot of shock.
Yeah. What we realize is customers are also looking for traceability, like track and trace of their products, and they're also looking for operational efficiency. We have about 20 customers in India right now.
And these are companies?
These are companies.
So we're talking thousands of chips?
Absolutely. We have about 10,000 sensors deployed already. And we were able to give them the temperature of every single order from the time of packing. Tell the guy in the warehouse that out of the 100 orders he has packed, here are the 6 he needs to repack. A 2x jump in temperature compliance. So no, we are not profitable yet, but we got Series A investment.
US investors?
No, from Singapore. And we have to educate the customers on how to think of IoT and how to think of transformation of their businesses using IoT. Food and beverage, I have dairy, I have breweries, I have e-commerce. So in pharma, we work, pharmaceutical manufacturers.
We need to get you on Gordon Ramsay's show. He needs to put your TagBox inside of a kitchen, and then he can have total data.
Yeah, I just hope it helps him tone down his swear words.
That's not happening. That's not happening.
Look at Uber Eats, you look at DoorDash. All these guys need traceability or Blue Apron from
HelloFresh.
HelloFresh, sorry.
Do you do anything in blockchain?
No. I have very strong personal views about blockchain.
Yeah?
I'm going to be having sensors in a box, in a pallet, in a truck. And that data is super critical for a blockchain to even survive. And we don't need to necessarily build it. There are lot of smart people working on that tech. We just need to, integrate, partner. We are very, very focused on building a product company and not a services company.
So why is your product so sticky?
See, once, I'll give you the example of the grocery guys. Actually, fix their supply chain using their product. This product, they just pushed the implementation all the way through.
How do you think you have grown as an entrepreneur?
It's just financial prudence and financial discipline to look at expenses and revenue in a very disciplined manner. At the end of the day, the tech is great, everything is good, but it's all about the numbers. There is an Indian term called jugaad. Jugaad basically means resourcefulness. Every day can be the best day or the worst day. We have learned to moderate both sides of the spectrum. Anything else, you need to have a lot of emotional strength being an entrepreneur, right? The smarts are fine, you solve problems, that's okay. But just being very, very strong mentally. We have had days where the month after, we don't have anything in the bank account. Okay, so we've had those days and we kind of somehow survive. I don't know how, but we survived.
You jugaad.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you're right.
Welcome to Startup Hunter. I am here with Adarsh Kumar, or he's the founder of TagBox, which is making supply chains smarter and more reliable. So on this show, the format is we go all the way back because I want to see, what makes you tick.
Yeah.
So here's what I want to know is, where were you born and what did your parents do?
Okay. Well, I was born in a town called Bhopal in India. It's in...
That's where the chemical spill was.
Yeah, absolutely. And I was lucky enough to survive it. We were far enough that the gas actually didn't reach our house. So yeah, we were lucky. So I was born there. I'm actually a South Indian. So my parents hail from the southern part of India. I lived all my life in Bhopal. So both of them they worked in the government enterprises, and I grew up there, did all my schooling there and my engineering.
Now, were your parents entrepreneurs? Did they work for somebody?
They were, both of them came from a very humble background, and but they were kind of their self-starters. They got educated and on their own, and landed up in, I guess, in a decent place, for what they did in their past life. So yeah, they were not entrepreneurs, but I'm sure, they saw much more, I'll call it, struggles than, I would imagine.
Okay.
I had a very comfortable life, let me just put it that way.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
So what was the first hustle that you can remember as a child? The first time you were trying to sell something or, just do something productive?
All right, so biggest hustle.
Your first hustle.
The first hustle, okay. So actually not much when I was in school, but when I was in college, this company called Amway.
Sure.
They do the marketing, hierarchical marketing.
They have that in India.
Yeah, well, that was the time, this was maybe 2000, 99 or 2000. And that's when they were coming to India. So somebody who I knew got me introduced to it. And so I actually was an Amway, I don't know what they call them, associate. Yeah, associate, whatever, for about 6 months. And I realized that is, is something that I didn't want to do.
Now tell me, what was your process?
So initially, I think what I liked about it was giving me, even at that age, a way to do something on my own. and not be bothered about, not be bothered about everything else that's happening around me. So I was getting a computer science degree, by the way, and this was happening on the side. So it just gave me a chance to experiment. The hustle was the fact that I needed some money from my parents to actually do it.
Did you make a profit?
Oh no, not by far, no.
So Amway won.
I just evened off and left the business. So I got a few more people hooked, and I realized that it just looks like scam. I mean, it is not a scam, looks like they're still there. But at that point in time, I just thought that I recovered my money, and then I just called it quits because it also started affecting my studies and what I really want to do.
So are you going around just cold calling people?
Well, it was just like I had a pretty good network always. So I used to be a fairly popular kid in the society I lived in. So so I just banged on a few doors. People I knew, I just got them hooked onto it, and I'm sure they are cursing me for it right now. but yeah, I mean, I did that, and that was my first. That was my first sale, actually. Yeah, if coming to think of it, and there was some entrepreneurial streak, which was there even back then. Yeah.
Okay, so you stopped doing Amway. You focused on your studies.
Yeah.
And
so I did my engineering, and in India, the interesting part is, especially at that time, I mean, I'm talking like 15, 18 years ago, 20 years ago even, it was a very clear path to how you want to go and educate yourself. So you can either become an engineer or you can become a doctor, and then after engineering, you can still decide whether you want to pursue technology or you want to do something in management. So I decided that, in fact, there's another story behind this. So after engineering, I wrote my GRE, and I really got really good marks, and I got admits from a few of the universities. I think it was Arizona State. I remember one more, I think Urbana-Champaign. And then the problem was at that time, so 2001 is when the attacks happened.
The dot-com crash.
The dot-com crash, the attacks happened, and I basically had no scholarships. And without scholarships, I couldn't really afford, otherwise I would have been in the US even at that point in time. So that didn't really go anywhere. So I did there is a exam called CAT in India, Common Entrance Test for management programs. So I actually did that, got into one of the best management schools in India, and rest is history. So I basically started my career in analytics right after finishing my management degree. So yeah, it was a very, I'll call it boring, mundane, education path.
With all this computer science, did you work on any side projects that, you...
So the good part was, whatever I did in the MBA degree, it was like a different thing that I chose. It was marketing research and analytics. So the good part was it involves a lot of coding. It involves a lot of, statistics, like math plus technology. So all the code that I wrote during engineering definitely helped me appreciate and understand the tech part of analytics. There is obviously the business side of it, but so the management kind of helped me with the business part. The engineering degree helped me with the tech part. So I think it was a fairly well a kind of a good round of education to get into something like analytics. Oh.
But no side projects in college, like?
No, we don't do that in India. I mean, like we are at home pretty much until we start to work. We are with parents, right? It's very unlike US, where kids just leave the empty nest. Well, it's not that way in India.
Okay, so you have your second degree, and then what do you do after that?
So then I started work with GE. Worked for their analytics team back in India. Began there.
And you were analyzing Indian problems or problems outside?
No, it's all US problems. Analytics as a concept was not even there in India, pretty much. The big boom of outsourced analytics started with GE, and I was part of that initial. I will say the first 500 people in India.
And what kind of problems were you analyzing?
So this was for their GE power generation businesses.
Yeah.
We were looking at customer satisfaction issues. So looking at all the primary research surveys that they do about satisfaction in like a B2B context. And then looking at what are the drivers of customer satisfaction, why are they are not able to fix issues, and so on and so forth.
And how long were you at that job?
I was there for about 2.5 years or so. In fact, but about almost half of that I was actually in Albany.
You were in Albany?
Yeah, in Schenectady, where the G power plants are at.
Oh, so they flew you here?
Yeah, of course. I was here. I was working directly with the customer and understanding. So actually, my role started transforming into a more of a consultative role rather than the actual like doing the work role.
Right. So
even at that
less,
time, yeah.
less desk work and more field work. What do you think about that? You know, because you went into school for computers and then you sort of gravitated away from that.
Yeah. I think of all of this as experiences. Not every experience that you have will be useful, but it's about like like for example, even then appreciation of how to code, how to look at data, how to look at data sets. There is a lot of math in the engineering, right? Using that to actually solve the problem for the customer is important. While the role gravitated into a consultative role or morphed into one, I still need to work with my team back in India and tell them, hey, here is what the customer is looking for. For this, we need to run this kind of a model. This is probably a best way to look at it. This is how you need to interpret the estimates. This is how you need to write the code. So I think the engineering didn't go away per se. It was a part and parcel of the analytics job always. So, yeah.
Cool. So you said you did that 2.5 years.
Yep.
Then what?
I was an year in another outsourced model, like a company called Fidelity. They're into mutual funds and whatnot. So again, I was a year there, but half of that was in Boston.
So you've officially moved here?
No, it was always coming here on a short-term visa and then helping them with and then going back.
Yeah.
So I was.
Well, that's like great because you're making hopefully maybe like an American salary and bringing it back to India?
No, it was always on a per diem. So yeah. I mean, it's not really about. I mean, I don't look at these as kind of money opportunities. It was mostly experiences. I mean, all of that, if you think about it, right, helped me grow in my career significantly because I was getting exposure to the customer directly without any not relying on phone lines. But that's always very important.
Yeah. So Fidelity, how long did you stay there?
Just a year. I actually didn't like that profile as much because it was more. So the difference between GE and Fidelity, GE was a client servicing role, and it's a very different model than having an internal role. Like it's just a corporate outsourcing role.
So at Fidelity, you were internal.
Internal, yeah. So it was we knew. it was like being in a corporate versus working in a consulting agency.
So why didn't you go back to GE if you like?
Well, so actually I started looking for companies and then I found something, I guess my calling, which was a company called Mu Sigma. Okay, Mu Sigma is even now probably one of the largest data science companies out there in terms of services. So I joined them very early, like they were probably 100 people. It was like a startup back then.
And where are they based?
Well, the headquarters is in Chicago and then they are in Bangalore. So the delivery happens out of Bangalore.
So you joined them and were you doing customer?
Yes, I was. Yeah, of course. So I was like a delivery manager out of India.
Delivery? Are you delivering like sandwiches?
Well, I wish it wasn't as much fun, but yeah, it was delivering analytical projects to them. Yeah.
I just like the image of here's your analytics. Boom.
Here you go. It's pretty much that way, man. Not much different.
Daily analytics.
Daily analytics.
Fresh off the presses.
Yep, absolutely. So I was working with multiple customers in the US there at that point in time, but from India. I actually met my wife in that organization, so I have a lot of things to go back to. So I met my wife there, and then in 2009, both of us actually moved to the US.
Where?
We were in Cleveland. I was managing the relationship with one of the large banks out of Cleveland. And so we, and that was a very good role. So now I was actually moving into like a analytics leadership role. So I was part of the core team in this company in Mu Sigma and managing like a set of customers for them.
Well, this is like, I think back in 2009, I think it's really cutting edge.
Yeah, absolutely. At that point in time, we were like, I don't think there were too many people who were doing this.
So I mean, GE understood the value, but
Yep.
like, was it constantly like you having to explain the value to, to these banks or customers and saying, you really need this, this
There were
service?
two, three different types of like banks, for example. Banks probably were the first ones who understood analytics and the its use, because there was data. They were making like a lot of decisions, like who to give credit to, who should we open an account for, who should we be thinking about before opening an account because of the risk that they bring and so on. So with banks, it was actually easy. I think as the company grew, we were selling to retailers like Walmart, to technology companies like Microsoft. So yeah, I mean, I think by that time, analytics was fairly well settled in terms of the need. It was just about executing, which made the difference, and we did that. So I think we did that very well.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
So how long did you stay at Mu Sigma?
Well, I was in Cleveland for about 2 years. Then I was about 2 years in Chicago, 2.5 years or so in Chicago. Again, very similar role, but now I was starting to manage a region, complete region of customers for them.
So how big was your team of employees?
Well, I was indirectly, I mean, if I look at my, in the US, it was about like 15 people, but back in India, it was about 200 people.
Wow.
So that's a fairly large set of customers.
It's a lot of responsibility.
Lot of data science. I had obviously my peer back in India who was my, like the, I'll call it my flip side, who would, we were, I mean, both of us were responsible for that region. He from a delivery perspective, me from a revenue and financials perspective.
Yes. So you're like a mini CEO.
When now an officially full CEO. At that time, yes. I mean, I was managing my own P&L. So if you think about again, right, going back to my perspective on experiences, these are all experiences which have helped us, now apply all of that into TagBox.
So you're a regional manager.
Yeah.
And
so in 2013, out of a wild thought that I think we should just go back to India now. It's been about 5 years. We went back to India.
Okay.
Yeah. So
just like you quit your job and you just.
I didn't quit. I just moved back with Mu Sigma, but back to India.
Okay.
I generally like a lot of people around me. That's my general personality. I like to be with people, and not just like professionally, but also personally. And at that point in time, I just felt that we were not getting that. So we had a lot of fun in US, but then we went back.
So you wanted weddings that are 5,000 people instead of weddings that are 200 people.
Yep, absolutely. So any day. So we did that, and so again I just took the flip side of the role there. I mean, I was basically part of the delivery leadership team in India.
But so then you're internal. You're no longer talking to customers.
Less of that, yes. So I missed that for sure. But I mean, having done like 5-6 years of that, it was more than enough. So now it was about building the company, working with. So at that point in time in Mu Sigma, we had about 3,000 people in India. So I was again responsible for about 250 or 300.
And did the company Mu Sigma 3,000? Did that number grow?
Oh yeah, it went from 100 to 3,000.
Wow.
From like 2008 to 13 or 14.
Yeah.
So yeah, absolutely.
And did the cost of paying salaries go up in that time as well?
So in India, there is this whole IT and IT services model where you pick up a lot of people from college, and the salaries don't escalate as much. So the model really worked across even like companies like Infosys or TCS. I'm not if you've heard about these guys. The base cost remains fairly small, and that's if you look at the pyramid, that's the bulk of the pyramid. The guys who are coming straight from college. So the cost didn't really escalate.
So you're there you're back in India.
Yeah, I was back in India in like end of 2013, and I was at Mu Sigma until 2016.
And then what happened?
So that's when I left. I wanted to do something interesting.
Okay.
I mean, I've been doing analytics at that point for about 11 years, right? So I said maybe.
So a few questions.
Yep. Go.
When you say something interesting, you have this sort of wild look in your eye.
Yeah.
And
so, see, if you look at it, right, about 11 years of analytics services delivery, right? And So I wanted to see if we can do a product out of it.
Well,
Right, so it was all services so far, managing people, managing projects, and so on. So going back to Bhopal, so my school buddy and my co-founder Soumitra Singh, he's from one of the IITs. I mean, IITs are one of the best schools in India for engineering.
Sure.
So he's a IIT Bombay graduate, and he has a background in IoT and hardware and communications and VLSI and so on.
Very large
And-
scale integration.
Yeah, so we said that it'll be fun. This was all happening over a glass of beer, as most startups would. And we were saying that it'd be fun to build a product which can combine the hardware part, the sensing part, with the analytics and offer that off the shelf. Because,
So quick answer.
yeah.
Is the stress of building a company fun?
Oh, absolutely,
yes
it's
or-
fun.
yes
Like,
or no?
I wouldn't give it up any day. Yes, absolutely, it is fun. Obviously, it has its own days and moments, but it is absolutely fun.
Okay. So here you are sketching over a beer your idea.
Yeah. Yep, so we are sketching over a beer, and then we realized that there aren't many companies which are doing this kind of, even talking this language actually. Most of them are talking, hardware or software, but nobody's talking doing this together. So yeah, that was the genesis of TagBox.
But give it to me again, and from another way. You just said hardware and software, but like, what was
If you look at, I'll give you a little bit more context, right? If you look at IoT, Internet of Things, most people talk about it in the context of having these devices, sensors, which can monitor whatever you want them to monitor, right? Oh, okay. And but the application of that is not something people talk about. Like, for example, people talk about smart cities, right? Making your home smart
it's an unusual.
and so on. But what we wanted to do is take the same, let's say, sensor and apply it in a B2B scenario, like a supply chain.
Now, okay, so did you have a specific use case in mind?
No, we didn't. So at that point in time, we could have gone into manufacturing automation. Could have gone into something completely crazy. I have background in supply chain analytics, so I did work with Walgreens and Walmart, and we realized that the cold chain, which is basically supply chains which are moving things like ice creams, dairy, meat, vaccines, which are all temperature controlled. That would be a very good place because the customers there are worried about temperature excursions. They're worried about compliance and quality of their product. And we could offer a very nice hardware plus software plus analytics kind of a product for them.
So how do you go from beer, do you start prototyping? What was the next step?
First was to convince everybody at home that, hey, this is reason enough to quit without a job.
Now, did you have kids?
Yeah, of course.
So you had a lot of risk already.
Yeah.
There was
I had one kid then, and I had another when we were in TagBox.
So did your wife try to smack some sense into you?
Well, I'm lucky to have a fairly supportive wife. So
Well, and it's only.
she's like, just be careful, don't do something crazy.
So she was sort of on your side.
Our entire lineage, like me, my dad, and even now my sons, we are very adamant in general. And I think we are at a point where, at least, but we don't make like crazy decisions. So I think there was some comfort for my wife, and she was like, yeah, that's fine. Go ahead.
Okay, so you just quit your job?
Yeah, so like
You're
April.
just like, I'm bored, I'm done.
April 2016. Obviously, we had some discussions and whatnot, but yeah, April 2016, I left.
Wow.
And we had 3 months where we just sat and about 3 months, May, June, about 3 to 4 months. Wanna go there? Yeah, sure. So we are at the High Line.
Yeah. This used to be a train track.
About 3-4 months of just figuring out what to do. In fact, and so Soumitra, who is the co-founder, he got another one of his ex-colleagues from a company he worked with as the third co-founder, a person called Samir.
Uh-huh.
So we then sat down and just figured out, how do you want to build the company. I got a couple of people from my from ex Mu Sigma to join us as well.
Now,
So we had,
did you, these initial people, were you paying them? Were they working for free?
Pretty much peanuts. Yeah, nothing to write home about for sure. Nothing that would get you married in India.
Yeah.
So yeah, but they took the risk because they knew us, and they were bought into the vision of what we were trying to build. So that happened. So we August is when we unofficially kind of came together, in the sense that we had an office space for free, obviously. And we started to register the company. So as of October 2016 is when we officially registered as a company in India. Yeah.
Now, what was the first concrete step that you take? Did you make a prototype first? Did you get customers first?
We made a PowerPoint first.
Okay, good. Very cheap.
Always, right? So we had to validate our thought before we went doing prototyping. Basically, that was the idea. So we between, I would say, let's say July or August until even like January, we were just talking to customers, like prospects.
Fantastic.
Like LinkedIn, cold calling, whatever, right? I mean, network. So we would have spoken to about 50 customers. Yeah. So and that was and we got a very good sense that it's a real need, and we are, I think we could have a very good product at our hands. So and at that point in time, we started the prototyping piece.
So was there a specific conversation that said, okay, now it's time to just go build a prototype?
Yeah. I mean, so we did a lot of research around the market, and the PowerPoint we put together was actually telling them that we already have a solution, right? That's how startups work, right? You tell them that you have a solution in hand already, even if you don't, and then put it in front of them and check with them whether, they would buy that. And most of them said, yeah, they will. So yeah, that was a good initial validation for us.
And what were you pitching them? What was the actual idea that you were pitching them?
So what we were pitching to them at that time was basically helping them improve their cold chains. So we would go to the pharma company and tell them, hey, you have so many compliance issues. Here are the things that we can do for you. We can help you monitor your cold chain end to end.
Now, I want give me some details. How do you monitor a cold chain?
Yeah. So like, for example, if somebody's moving a set of vaccines, right, from point A to point B in India, they would want to real time know the temperature of that particular box, because it is got vaccine and it should be only between 2 to 8 degrees Celsius.
So back before TagBox was created, how were they monitoring?
They were doing it with something called data loggers. They were passive devices. You put them into the box, it keeps recording data, and at the end of the trip you take it out, you put it into a computer, the PDF report gets generated, and then you look at the PDF report and see if any issues happen.
So there's a big lag time.
It's like, it's not digital. The PDF could be lost, it could be stored in a Google Drive junk, and and it never recover it. There are a lot of issues with that. And what we were proposing is that real time or quasi real time data for monitoring your supply chain. Not just that, obviously the product has evolved over time, but that was our initial value proposition, and doing this for not just in transit, but also doing it in storage, like for example in your freezers and refrigerators, where the product is stored before it is dispatched.
So tell me about your first prototype.
Which didn't work.
I love it. I want the story.
So the funny part was, so this was our first. We were doing trying to do a lot of partnerships with IT services companies. So there was a company called Mindtree, and so with them they said, hey, they liked what we were pitching, and they said, hey, we have a innovation day coming up at Unilever. Do you guys want to participate with us in our booth? And of course, like, which startup says no, right? And we did, and we had to create a prototype for them. The day before we were supposed to demo, nothing worked. Okay, like nothing worked. The monitoring didn't work. We had alerts and notifications, they didn't work. And pretty much overnight, we had to solve the problem. And then we were in that innovation booth, and obviously there were a lot of, back-end fixes that we would keep doing for the system to work. And we literally had a guy sitting at the back, refreshing the database again and again,
making sure that
Steve Jobs, exactly.
Kind of moment.
And then it worked though. After that, it did work. And
Did you get customers from that first?
we get a lot of no. I think all this was just validation, right? So Unilever you can't get from a demo for sure, but we got a lot of good feedback on how we should think about the product. What are the different other additions you need to have or features you need to add to the product to make it viable? So yeah, so we did that, and then
It was a cold storage prototype.
cold storage and even for supply
So you
chain.
were doing what were you reading? Temperature only?
Primarily, and energy actually, like power consumption, energy consumption.
Why is that important?
For refrigerators, like in a cold chain setup, energy is one of the biggest expenses that you'll have because
Right.
you're constantly running your refrigerators and this. So you want to make sure that your freezers and all of that are running optimally. So that's
So you're not wasting money.
yeah.
Got it.
Absolutely.
So you said you didn't get any customers, but
At that time, no. So now we were in a very interesting spot. So we had a lot of. I mean, we started some POCs though, proof of concepts, with some customers in India.
okay.
Like Danone, like from dairy perspective. We were working with Future Group, which is one of the largest, actually the largest retailer in India, and so on. So we had a few of those going. But then we realized that to actually develop a product which works and is world class, we need money.
yeah.
Right? We can't really do it with peanuts.
Well, so were the customers, potential customers, saying like, okay, when's it going to be ready?
Yeah, of course. So we were doing proof of concept with whatever we had already. So we were already doing that, but it was not good enough. It was just like scratching the surface. So we started looking for our seed round, seed money.
Now, seed money in India from Indian investors.
Yeah. So we have some angel investors there, a group of angel investors. So we actually went and on a Sunday afternoon, we went and pitched to them, and they liked it. They were sold. They really liked. At that time we didn't have any revenue.
Yeah.
So they were like, they just loved the team. They loved the fact that we were coming in with such diverse experiences. Like I was coming in with an analytics and business development experience, and the other guys were coming in with a very solid tech background. So yeah, so they put their trust in us. We got
Most investors want revenue. They want practicality.
So at a seed, this is like specifically for seed investments. You can't really have that. So when you go Series A, you need revenue typically.
Yeah.
At seed, most of them are either funding an idea or a team or both. Right? So they just believe that this team might do well. Right? So that's the idea. So so that's what we did. So we got funded as of actually very quickly. By July of 2017, we were already funded. And
So 1 year in,
Yep.
and
less than a year in,
you're
yeah.
paying everybody in food basically.
Yep.
And so what did you use the money for?
Oh yeah, we just started hiring immediately. We hired our first 4 or 5 guys, some from college, some from from the industry. Started building the product. So yeah, I mean somewhere around that time, we also got accepted in a startup program from SAP. So that gave us a lot of.
SAP is right in that building right there.
Oh really? Wow. Okay. And a couple of other programs from like Future Group and whatnot. We also won the Qualcomm Design in India Challenge for our hardware.
Now, were you just manufacturing the hardware in your office?
There are 2 parts to our hardware. So there are these sensors. These guys.
let me see.
Yeah. So right there. So these we actually get from our manufacturing partners. Yeah. There you go.
Now, these partners are they in India?
In China, Taiwan, and Penang.
So you went the classic electronics.
Yeah, I mean we had to see for this IoT market to be successful, it has to be the cost has to be pretty low. I mean the cost effectiveness and ROI need to be worked out.
So your co-founder knows electronics.
Yeah, absolutely, they do, both of them. So so we just get the chip and the enclosure from our manufacturers. All the software and the firmware which goes onto these guys is ours.
So does that have a wireless antenna in it?
Yep.
So it connects to a cell phone tower?
It doesn't directly. It needs what's called a gateway. It can, like, I can use my phone as a gateway. So the way it will work is this transmits over Bluetooth low energy.
So does that need power?
Yeah, well, it's got a battery inside. It's got 2-year battery life.
Fantastic.
So it basically transmits data on Bluetooth, low energy, and it can be read by our app on a cell phone, or we have our own proprietary product, the gateway, the Tag Hub gateway, which was actually developed with Qualcomm. It's got a Qualcomm chip inside, and we got all the Qualcomm support, and we won the Qualcomm Design in India Challenge in 2017.
Oh, fantastic. So you got some real serious
Yep,
help.
and they actually they invested about $75,000 in us at that time, so it was very useful.
Now that sensor right there, is that temperature?
This is shock actually.
Shock.
Yep,
No,
vibration.
who would use a shock sensor?
So, lot of the consumer appliances companies, when they ship their appliances in a supply chain, because of mishandling, you could have damage. So this will be used to understand which parts of the supply chain are actually,
shock.
yeah. It could be in the dock, it could be actually in transit, it could be during unloading, it could be while delivering to a customer to their apartment, right? It could be anywhere. So understanding where it is and fixing that is very, very crucial. So if you look at now what we do, right? So there is obviously the cold chain part, which is great. There is also the fragile goods and high value goods. So we work with appliances companies, we work with pallet rental companies, we work with glass manufacturers, furniture guys, because they want to understand where their goods are at and what's the quality of their goods in terms of damage, in terms of chip contamination, whatever. So the product has actually evolved very nicely for us.
Okay, so I know this is so exciting.
Yeah.
I just want to stay a little chronological.
Yeah.
So, and we can fast forward a little bit.
Yeah, sure.
So when did you get your first dairy customer?
That was in I would say September of 2017.
And what were they shipping? Yogurt, ice cream?
Yogurt.
From where to where?
It was all domestic in India.
Yeah.
So it was last mile deliveries in India, going from their warehouse to the retail stores.
And how rapidly did it, get adopted? Was it like one truck, then two trucks?
These were pretty small. In total, about like 20 trucks.
But did it like expand from there?
I mean, there's interesting part was they closed down their dairy business in India in 2018. So we started off and then they closed it down completely.
So did you stop dairy at that point?
No. We kept doing. So with those guys itself, we are now, even at that time itself, we started doing, what do you call, source supply chain monitoring. So like you have these bulk milk chillers where they collect the source milk from like dairy farmers. We started monitoring those for them. So that's still a ongoing thing with them. But I think what has happened is, I'll just tell you evolution of the product because that's very important at this point.
Okay.
So if you look at our core value proposition, it was about quality and compliance, right? With the cold chain and everything. What has happened is we realized that is not meaty enough for somebody for us to sign up with, right? So to sign up with us.
Okay.
What we realize is customers are also looking for traceability, like track and trace of their products, and they are also looking for operational efficiency. For example, what's the delay on my average route? What's the loading time? What's the unloading time? What's the dwell time in a dock? These are all things which we can give them with the same technology. Nothing new has to be developed. So that's how our product has evolved over the last year and a half, where it comprises of quality and compliance, traceability, and operational efficiency.
So I just want to get a sense of the scale of like how many people are using.
Yeah, we have about 20 customers in India right now,
and these are companies.
These are companies.
So we're talking thousands of chips.
Absolutely. We have about 10,000 sensors deployed already. One of our largest customers is the largest online grocery company in India. Okay, very interesting problem we are solving for them. So about 85% of what they deliver to customers is dry stuff like rice and lentils and
So why does that
oil.
need monitoring?
That doesn't. The other 15% does, which is dairy and meats and fresh vegetables and fruits. They do that in a think of it as an ice box, which is cooled with gel packs. Okay, like ice packs, if you will. The problem is that this is typically a 10-hour journey from the time of packing the order, and then it goes to a customer, and it doesn't go in a refrigerated vehicle. This is it. It goes in an open vehicle because the rest of the supply chain is dry. So they face issues of temperature excursions in the supply chain, and they wanted to fix that. So what we did is we installed about 5,000 sensors in these boxes for them in 3 cities. And then they started to get, and we did some kind of ERP integration in the background. That's very crucial for us because we do a lot of analytics. And we were able to give them the temperature of every single order from the time of packing to the excuse me, to the customer doorstep.
And did you discover by putting these sensors, I'm sure you must have discovered like problems that they could fix?
Yeah. In fact, one of the biggest things which was a revelation was that if they were able to fix the problem at source at the time of packing, that's where the actual issues were happening. Like those guys were not putting enough ice packs, right? Those kind of issues were happening. So what we did is we developed a model which would predict within the first 30 minutes or 45 minutes of packing an order whether the temperature of that order will survive. And that was very good because now we are able to tell the guy in the warehouse that out of the 100 orders he has packed, here are the 6 he needs to repack, because they are the ones which are most likely to fail in terms of a temperature. So that was huge because they were able to see, like, within like 4 months of deployment, they saw a 2x jump in temperature compliance, which is great, right? And along with that, they were getting the complete traceability benefits. Like each of these boxes costs money, and they would have issues where the boxes would be left at a customer's place, it wouldn't come back, it is like lying somewhere in a warehouse and they don't know where it is at.
So is your company profitable yet?
No, not yet. I mean, we are a deep tech company, right? So there is, and especially we are a hardware company on top of that. So we have a lot of capital costs that typically gets burnt. So no, we are not profitable yet, but as of May of this year, we got Series A investment.
Now from US investors?
No, from Singapore. So we opened our subsidiary in Singapore earlier this year, and in May we got investment there from one of the largest corporate groups in India called TVS Motors. They are the largest automotive two-wheeler manufacturing company.
Not Tata.
No, not Tata. Tata is mostly into cars. These guys are into two-wheelers and three-wheelers, like scooters and motorbikes and so on. But the investment came from their digital arm in Singapore.
Wow.
So yeah, so now we are see, this business is a pretty hard business to build. I mean, it's because it's kind of ahead of its time a little bit, and we have to educate the customers on how to think of IoT and how to think of transformation of their businesses using IoT. So all of this money right now, that's the use of that. That's what we're trying to use it for. We're trying to see how we can tell our customers on using our solution to actually make business outcomes better.
Okay, so you're in dairy one. What else do you?
So now if you look at my 3 industries, if I look at food and beverage, I have dairy, I have breweries, I have e-commerce grocery companies, food delivery companies, typical food and beverage manufacturers, and so on. So but if I look at where my product is most suitable, I would say that these e-commerce groceries, food delivery companies, where it's a last mile supply chain, becomes very important, and there are so many people on the road. So all the 3 aspects of our product get utilized there, which is quality and compliance, traceability, and operational efficiency.
Now,
that's number 1.
Okay, go ahead.
That's one category, right? Another is pharma. So in pharma, we work, pharmaceutical manufacturers and clinical diagnostics and clinical trials kind of companies. And the third is high-tech and industrial, which is the fragile goods use case I talked about, right?
Now, has your company expanded its operations outside of India?
India and Singapore for now. I'm here right now.
Yeah, you're here in the US.
Yeah, of course, yeah. So I'm actually having very, very good conversations right now. The need, is the same here as well. In fact, I was having a conversation with one of the mentors over at Numa, and in fact, there was an article I came across which talked about that even in US, in restaurants, 40% of the restaurants face temperature excursion issues. Right?
You mean when getting their goods delivered to them?
No, actually in storage inside of their facilities, right? And they don't know about it in the sense that it's very manual way to monitor it. So we have a very clear use case there to be able to help them out.
Sure.
Yeah.
I think that's probably quite valid. Maybe even Gordon Ramsay. We need to get you on Gordon Ramsay show because he's going into restaurants.
Is that Hell's Kitchen or?
Yeah. You know, he needs to put your TagBox inside of a kitchen, and then he can have total data.
Yeah, I just hope it helps him tone down his swear words.
That's not happening. You know that's not happening.
There is no sensor in the world which can make that happen, right?
But so restaurants, I think it's an interesting thing. But like,
Yeah.
there's a lot of people here.
Yeah,
you know,
absolutely. Yeah.
like Whole Foods does.
Yeah.
You know,
In fact,
delivery.
Whole Foods is one of the connects I'm pursuing. You know.
Go to Austin for that.
Well, yeah. Let's see how that goes. But yeah, definitely. You know, you look at Uber Eats, you look at DoorDash. All these guys need traceability. They are delivering food, so there is some amount of temperature compliance that will be there. You look
Fresh.
at or Blue Apron from
HelloFresh.
Sorry, and Blue Apron from a meal kit's perspective.
Yeah.
Right. So, I mean, the need is absolutely there. I think the perspective now is, how much are they willing to pay for it? I think that's where it's at. What's the cost of compliance? What are the kind of compliance penalties that they have today, which we can solve for them? So, no, I definitely think there's a huge market. And if you look at the industrial and manufacturing sector, that's just waking up to the power of IoT.
Yeah. You know, how flexible is your platform? Like, are there any industries you don't want to go after because it's too expensive?
See, for now, we are focused on, supply chains which are sensitive, right? It's fragile goods or goods that are sensitive to temperature. I probably will not have a very good case for, detergents, right? Or, soap or oil, where there is no conceptual damage or spoilage that can happen to my product, to their products rather, which I can help to fix. I can give them traceability, but the use case might not work out from my economics perspective. So I think for our business to be successful, at least two of these three problem statements that we talk about need to be there. And if there is quality and compliance, it's a definite sell. The other two, depending on what category you're looking at, is it a high margin category or not? It really depends. Yeah.
Interesting.
But if you look at automotive, right, for example,
Sure.
Even without the quality and compliance angle, you have a huge traceability angle. You have these spare parts which are coming in bins from tier 1 and tier 2 suppliers.
All over the world.
All over the world, and then they want to look at traceability of that. And that's crucial because they are looking at just-in-time manufacturing. They are looking at making sure everything is reaching them. And they want to make sure things are appropriate in the sense that the number of units they're supposed to get, they're actually getting that on time. So on-time performance and traceability becomes super crucial for automotive. So I believe that use case definitely will be there as well. So
Do you do anything in blockchain?
no, I have very strong personal views about blockchain.
Yeah. Tell them. I have strong views too.
Yeah, I think it's super overhyped right now.
Yeah, I agree.
The cost of creating a blockchain especially I'm talking purely from a supply chain perspective. Okay, nothing on the financial side. The cost of creating a blockchain for a complicated multi-hop supply chain will outweigh the benefits. That's my thought process.
So I'm with you because I think it's way overhyped. That said, blockchain plus supply chain,
Yeah.
they're always talking about.
Yeah, they are. In fact, like IBM and Maersk, they are trying to pilot out the first blockchain concept, and they can do that. I mean, they have the scale. I mean, Maersk is there, so they have the shipping lines and the logistics behind it. But doing it on like if you look at online retail or look at DoorDash or whatever, right? It might not be cost effective enough for them to be able to have that. But you never know. These things have a tendency to come back and hit you in the face and say, "I told you so." But we'll see. But for now, no, we are not really doing much.
I think it's fine to be a late adopter because then you don't have to waste a lot of money.
Yeah, absolutely, you're right. And then we are looking at it a little differently. We are saying that I am creating the foundation for a digital supply chain. I'm going to be having sensors in a box, in a pallet, in a truck. And that data is super critical for a blockchain to even survive. So yeah, I mean, I think if at all blockchain takes off, we are going to be in one of the best positions to take advantage of it. And we don't need to necessarily build it. I mean, there are lot of smart people working on that tech. We just need to, integrate, partner, and use their services. So
how many people you said you have 100 employees?
No, we have 20 employees.
And they're all in India except for you?
Yeah, absolutely, yes. And we are very, very focused on building a product company and not a services company. So
interesting. Talk about that.
Given that we are ahead of our time, right, in terms of where we are in terms of our product, and there is a tendency for us to do a lot of customization. Everybody asks for, hey, can you build this for us? Can you build that for us?
Right.
And very quickly, you can morph into a services company, just building a lot of reports and dashboards, versus a product company, which is, hey, here is what we have, and maybe like 5% tweaks here and there to make it adjust. But other than that, this is it.
Yeah.
And as the founding team, it's very crucial for us to have that point of view.
Absolutely.
Otherwise, it will not be a scalable model, and then the next round of funding or even scalability in general will be a tough thing.
Exactly. Yeah. I think that's. I'm glad you're adamant.
Oh yeah. I mean, we have to be. Otherwise, we'll end up. And there are a lot of companies, by the way, who are doing IoT consulting, IoT services. But we believe that model won't scale, and it's not a repeatable model. It's not a retainer model. We want to create a retainer model with a very, very sticky product. And I think we have a very good product at our hands.
Why is your product so sticky?
See, once, I'll give you the example of the grocery guys, right? Online grocery guys. See, once they started understanding the grocery guys, the largest grocery, when they started realizing that they can actually fix their supply chain using their product, they just pushed the implementation all the way through, right? In terms of their people getting trained, their supply chain teams getting aligned, using this data and actually making changes. So it's sticky because it really helps you not just one time, but constantly keep fixing your supply chain on a daily basis, and not on just one parameter, but on multiple parameters. With the data that we have, technically speaking, all these guys can they have data which they never had before, and with that they can do so much more. So if you look at supply chain, is a fairly mature field, and they have had a lot of data even in the past. Now, by putting these sensors on places where earlier you did not have any data, you are getting, I'll call it, micro supply chain views, which they can start fixing, which is a pretty big effort, but definitely will make them have so a lot of improvements eventually, which will save cost and help with customer satisfaction for them.
So is there some kind of tech that you need that you don't have right now that you wish you could have?
I think most of our effort right now is on certifications. We need a lot of certifications for our hardware.
For example?
There are a lot of electronic certifications, CE, FCC, PTCRB, and so on, which are required for us to start selling in the US actively. Okay. So on the sensor side, we are already covered. On the gateway side, we are maybe about a month or 2 months away from having that. So as of January, we will have a completely ready hardware product. For US, software is software, so it doesn't matter. I think the next phase of the company is really be able to build those productized analytics models, so that we can start deploying them as well when we deploy it, with our customers.
So you're going to move your whole family back here?
Not yet. Most likely, what we'll do is we'll hire somebody local. I'm here right now. I'm actually trying to set up the sales process and whatnot. We'll probably hire somebody locally, let them hunt here, and obviously we'll keep doing the back and forth from India here.
Wow.
Yeah.
Just an 18-hour flight.
Yeah, it's okay. It's not that bad. Once you start looking at movies, it's fine.
Okay, so this is exciting.
Yeah.
Here's the final question. I ask it to everyone on the show.
Okay.
How do you think you have grown as an entrepreneur?
Great question actually. So I think the one biggest place is just financial prudence and financial discipline. I think ability to understand how different aspects of finance work and how that helps or hinders the company is something that I've learned.
Give it to me. Like, what are you bad at in finance? Like, what do you realize that you are bad at?
Like, for example, being able to look at expenses and revenue in a very disciplined manner every week, every month, and living by it, that's something that we have started doing only now. Because everything is about, at the end of the day, I mean, the tech is great, everything is good, but it's all about the numbers.
Yeah.
Being crazy about it, being like OCD about it is the way to go.
Because one part of you wants to invest everything, build amazing technology.
Right? You see, given infinite money, any business can be built. But with limited money, with limited resources, there is an Indian term called jugaad. Jugaad basically means resourcefulness, and that's a big deal in India. So how do you make do with limited resources and still build the close to world-class product that you can? I think that's having a very clear perspective on expenses and so on. Second thing is I think which we have grown to learn is that building a business, and maybe that's true for life, but more so probably for startups versus like a corporate job. Every day can be the best day or the worst day, right? And you cannot celebrate too much on the good day, and you should not go into a hole on the bad day.
I think that going into the hole is really is a problem. I think it's celebrating is okay.
Actually, what happens is, like, because you're a startup, even a good signal, you think of it as a great signal, and you start celebrating much before it has actually materialized. And that's a big risk for us.
Well, sure.
Yeah, and so we do celebrate, obviously. I mean, let's not say that we don't, but we have learned to moderate both sides of the spectrum. It really helps to have a very good, solid core team who has been there for the last 3 years. We understand each other. We obviously fight also, and it's important to do that. But at the end of the day, we agree to some basic principles on how we are building the company, and we just keep doing it. So I think those are the two big things I would say, which were not there in my previous, last 11 years before I started TagBox. Those two things are very, very crucial, because you won't have such stark good or bad days, right? So you need to be, actually, more than anything else, you need to have a lot of emotional strength being an entrepreneur, right? I mean, the smarts are fine, you solve problems, that's okay, but just being very, very strong mentally. I mean, we have had days where, like the month after, we don't have anything in the bank account. Okay, so we've had those days, and we kind of somehow survived. I don't know how, but we survived. And
because you jugaad.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you're right. So but that's the story of every entrepreneur. I'm sure. Like, I don't know if there's any entrepreneur, unless they got it like super lucky, to not have that situation, and then come out of it. So far so good. It's too early, man. It's too early. 3 years is nothing in the kind of technology product that we are building. So I'm really excited that the whatever we have thought in terms of the need is actually there. And Taco Bell, man. Yeah.
Dunkin' Donuts.
Exactly. So these are all guys we would want to talk to.
Starbucks.
Absolutely. So Starbucks, we're actually looking for a connect. McDonald's, Burger King, right? All the guys. Sonic.
Whataburger.
Yeah. There you go. There's one Bear Burger, I guess. Have you eaten at Bear Burger?
Yeah, I'm familiar. I think it's a New York chain.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. So we have somebody who's connected there, so they're gonna introduce us as well.
Well, thank you so much for coming on.
Oh, absolutely. My pleasure, Hunter. Thank you for having me on.
And you go to tagbox.co.
and that's where we are at. But yeah, I mean, we'll be here now. We are trying to establish our own little marker on the big map. Hopefully, the next time we do this, we would already have some, big customers in US and another like very, very interesting stories to say.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right.